Hey, Warpugs. So today we're here checking out SsethTzeentach's Songs of Six review. I'm pretty sure I got that right. I'm pretty sure I got the name of this right. But this is the Deranged Edition, and for him to entitle something as a Deranged Edition of anything leads me to have several concerns that this is going to involve a lot of violations of the Geneva Conventions. And that sounds all well and good, you know, because good times do rhyme with war crimes. I've seen what he has done in the past, and it does give me cause for concern. Warpugs! I try my best to see these things through to the end. I try my best to understand everything that I see, but there are times I look at things that Seth does and I just simply don't understand what I'm seeing before me. Guys, if you have similar situations, please leave a comment down below and tell me what happens in your brain when you see some of the things that he does. Until then, though, Warpugs, let's jump right into this Songs of Six review. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check the links in the description below. Let's rock and roll.
What is the worth of a human life? I can't give you that answer, but I can tell you the worth of an elvish life. 62 meat and 17 leather once you really
Oh, man. Well, we're starting off right.
peel them down.
Okay.
Hey people, Seth here.
Hey.
Despite doing this for several years, I have never figured out how to use a microphone.
Okay.
And for this, I sincerely apologize. Songs of Six is an ambitiously made, self-styled city-state simulator, developed for the better part of 7 years. Now, imagine you start playing the game, and naturally, you play the tutorial.
Of course.
I imagine most people do. The difference, however, is that over 100 hours later, I am
Flip Witch, Scarlet Maiden. Okay.
I am still on the tutorial. This is the story of Jackaton, the default starting location for the tutorial, which is named after the developer. We have no mountains, no natural resources, a sprinkle of trees, a small lake, and generally nothing. We're sandwiched between four neighbors, the city-states of Tegenval and Sluva, and the empires of Starless and Ulisu. In a word, it's not looking very good for us.
No.
In the beginning, you start with a couple dozen citizens and a dream of something greater. Unfortunately, we are Crotonians. These are peaceful, vegetarian pigmen with no aspirations beyond slumming in the dirt and farming crops. But for
So in other words, you are a medieval peasant. Moving.
our purposes, they're perfect. I quickly started an agricultural operation.
He is weaponizing the Kuni Kuni to go to war with everybody. And if you don't know what a Kuni Kuni is, look up Kuni Kuni pigs. They're kind of cute when they're little.
Not much, but at least we're not starving. Grain has to be processed by a bakery, while fruit and vegetables can be eaten directly. Regrettably, instead of a fruit farm, I started an orchard. I did this on the promise that it's a slow operation with twice the potential yield. To this day, it has produced no fruit, because by the time the fruit trees mature, I get a worm infestation and have to chop them all down. Citizens typically prefer locals over immigrants, and the only way to increase the local population is by having children at the local nursery. In this game, a year is 16 days, and each 4 days is a season. A baby becomes a child, and a child becomes eligible for labor at 4 years of age. Songs of Six the miracle of childbirth with the economic miracle of child labor.
There we go.
After my pigmen accidentally snacked on all the vegetables in the nursery crib, I can confidently tell you, infant mortality has no effect on the happiness of your population.
Hey,
Your
yay!
city lives and dies on happiness. If you fail to keep your citizens happy, you'll start a failure cascade that ends in ruin. The simulation goes down to each individual citizen and measures the average fulfillment of their needs and desires for that particular race. Race is an interesting topic. Some
Why?
races don't get along. Some races are predisposed to crime. Some races control our educational sector, our labs, and our academia. But what else am I supposed to do when everyone else hates education? I'm talking, of course, about none other than humans. Humans are troublesome, criminal, and have the lowest sanity score of any race. Which means an essential component of any healthy human population is an asylum.
The fact that he actually had to say we have the lowest sanity does not surprise me at all. I mean, if you really want just look at Blue Sky or Twitter, and you will understand why. I have decided to not get back on Blue Sky or Twitter just because I value what's left of I value what's left of my ability to determine reality from fiction.
But they heckin' love science.
Yay!
Which is important because this game handles research in a unique fashion.
Oh?
You don't just learn something. No, you research it, and then you have to pass on that generational knowledge across time. Remember, we don't start with paper. We get to that point after multiple generations of oral tradition. And even then, we have to maintain and preserve our existing knowledge against entropy. Almost every other race dislikes intellectualism and prefers to be indoctrinated. This is advantageous as it fosters loyalty in the absence of happiness. An open mind is an open bussy, its gates unbarred and unguarded. Some might argue that great men are made, not born. In the case of Dondorians, that is literally true because they appear as fully formed adults at the base of a mountain. For this reason, the only way to get Dondorians is by immigration. They're good at mining, they're good at Minecraft, they're basically dwarves. The Talapi are forest-dwelling elves. They're good with trees and they're good with nature. What else? They're also known for violating human men for several days before they cannibalize them.
At dusk, the great queen Amara set upon the village and swiftly overran its defenses with her Talapi host. The children were slain and the women put in cages. Huh.
Bizarrely, this makes them compatible with a cave-dwelling Garfimi, who are effectively bugmen. What they lack in skill, they make up for with raw numbers. And there's nothing bugs enjoy more than plucking limbs from the other races. And while most cities will have a mixed population, some races don't get along with anyone. The Amelia are coastal-dwelling lizardmen. They're uniquely xenophobic and incompatible with other races, which is offset by their impressive physique and high lifespan. If you want a true monocultural, isolationist experience, try the lizards. Finally, there are two giant races you can't normally get. The more explanation is that their populations have been decimated over the course of several great wars. If you control a region containing a haven and satisfy their high demands, they can be convinced to join your cause. While they have many differences, they do share a common trait. They're fucking gigantic and make for the best shock troops in the entire game.
Typically, something the size of a house is going to, significantly wreck stuff if you hand them a tree and tell them to go beat up a line infantryman.
Bit of an irony in a sense that they're incredibly rare and almost extinct, and the best thing they're good at is getting even more extinct.
There you go.
Argonash are spider leviathans with a voracious appetite. They don't care for anything except food, which may sound simple until you realize the logistical nightmare of providing 4 meals a day to every person on the map. The Cantors may ask for more up front, but they're easier to satisfy. Generally. Once, I arrested 2 people at the same time, but only had 1 courtroom. One of the 2 arrested thieves had no legal representation. They considered this a complete breakdown of my legal system and left in disgust. But at the time, I knew none of this. I was a young blood, desperate to turn a profit and expand my settlement. YouTubers are a prime example of making the most amount of money with the least amount of skill and intellect. In a fair society, these are the people who should be toiling in the coal mines and dying of black lung.
I am in West Virginia.
Really? I simulated this by importing Garfimi slaves and renaming them to my favorite content creators.
Wait.
People who should be toiling in the coal mines and dying of black lung. Appropriately, I simulated this by importing Garfimi
Mr. Beast?
slaves and renaming
4-hour video essay on The Witcher.
Naming them to my favorite content.
It's no longer like... Wait. Pyrocynical cross-dressing again.
Content creators.
I'm surrounded by nuns.
I invested so much into this coal mining operation, only to find out I've spent several in-game years for a tar pit with 30% efficiency. It wasn't just unprofitable, but because of the size and scale, the cost of maintenance alone sent me into the red. On the other hand, I found out slavery is actually quite well received, as my citizens enjoy a slave population so long as it's not their own. My settlement grew, and unfortunately, crime had become an issue.
That sucks.
another flashing. The people lived in fear. Arrests had to be made, but because I spread myself so thin, I didn't have the resources or manpower to enforce it. And so, the public indecency continued until I increased my coverage. And after the prison started filling up, I am forced to make a difficult statement. Dundorians are sex pests. Of the 5 indecent exposers, all 5 have been dwarves. I have no further comment. At this point, I was earning capital by exporting furniture. This game doesn't have a fixed economy. Trade prices fluctuate and work on the rules of supply and demand. Basically, if you can make your own, that's strongly encouraged. If you have excess to sell off, that's good too. But overtrading a commodity can apply disproportionate pressure on the value, which is minimized by the number of trade partners. So, if you want money, you better diversify. But if you don't, poverty also has its advantages. If our treasury is empty and we're dead broke, guess what? Our diplomatic gifts mean a whole lot more, which is important because if our reputation drops to 0 with any of the 4 factions bordering us, we're getting invaded. And with a current standing army of 0 men, I don't fancy my chances. So I would intentionally dip my savings into the red, plead, cry, and defecate in front of my neighbors, and a pathetic display made me an unattractive target for assault.
There you go.
Reputation farm into the multiple thousands so I could reliably forget about it for the next dozen years, while enjoying the benefits of almost 0 taxation on all trade. This gave me a lot of time to experiment and figure out what I'm doing. Firstly, I tried mining gemstone. Subsequently, I failed at mining gemstone.
That sucks.
I used the natural fertility of Jackaton and turned it into an opium plantation.
There you go.
I still had a lot of Garfimi slaves left over and put them to work in fields of poppies and cotton. However, I got overly ambitious and my bugs got a little rowdy. There is no other situation where the following words can be said. The cotton pickers are having another uprising. Subsequently, we abolished the
Okay, yeah.
practice. Not on moral grounds, but because they robbed my throne and took just about everything.
That
Happiness
sucks.
was at an all-time low among my Dundorians, so I tried producing alcohol and opened a tavern. Demand outstripped supply. Access was terrible and supplies were so low that it just made them angrier. So I tried satisfying food preference instead.
Okay.
Mushrooms, fish, complex proteins. Then I restricted everyone to just eating bread, and they were happier. Additionally, I tried introducing fine dining in the form of restaurants, and almost lost the game to a public riot. Not only did I fail to meet
because remember, kids, nobody likes that.
supply, but each time I did so, a citizen would starve, spiraling into a vicious loop. Their desire for the McMenu was so strong that it overrode their survival instinct to eat street food, preferring instead the embrace of death.
Nice.
This was not a plague of famine. It was a plague of choice. After the many lessons learned, alcohol is haram, cooking is forbidden, and our entire food pyramid is bread.
Yes.
I did make a breakthrough in citizen satisfaction. It turns out that when I select and look at a random peasant, they are not meant to be caked in shit. And only after building bathhouses 40 hours into the game did I make that connection. Around this time, I also realized, after reading the tooltip, the reason for my insane cost of maintenance. You see, buildings have walls. Walls increase isolation.
Right.
I did not build any walls. Do I have to rebuild my entire city? Yes, I did. I rebuilt the whole thing. And I learned to love city planning.
Yay!
Building design is incredibly fun, and there's no greater satisfaction than having an elegantly designed lavatory for optimal shitting, pissing, and sharding.
There we go.
You take so much pride in what you've built. Am I coping? Yes, absolutely. But after numerous trials and tribulations, I had a stable, diversified economy and a series of shacks resembling civilization.
Yeah.
Also, I promoted
Why you gotta call an Asmongold like that?
a 4-year-old to become nobility.
Okay.
Because it's funny. Nobles provide a variety of beneficial effects, and currently they're a work in progress. Or, as the developer translated to me, they cannot betray you yet. Everything was calm and peaceful until we found a Crotonian with his eyes scooped out. On the body was a note, signed Jake the Invincible, claiming that he's saving lives by returning them to his forgotten god.
The pestilence.
Our city.
We need to found the SCP Foundation in this pronto to get a hold of the doctor, because that is apparently what Jake is.
Had a serial killer.
Oh, yeah.
Another day, another victim found dead. eye sockets empty. Every victim was a Crotonian, and this was clearly a racially targeted crime. Terror ruled the streets, and we had no leads. It wasn't until a passerby claimed to see a Crotonian woman fleeing the scene. This information didn't add up, but we tortured a confession out of them, and they pleaded guilty to all crimes. The serial killings promptly stopped. Jake the Invincible was identified to be a middle-aged Crotonian woman predating on her own people. We sent the killer into the arena to be chopped into pieces for the spectacle of a crowd. We gave their body as much respect as it deserved. We pissed on it and dumped it into a mass grave. Serial killings are rare, and they're not often so straightforward. You might get the wrong guy and torture out a false confession, or the trail simply goes cold from lack.
Why? Why is this in the... Why is she there? Like, constantly right now. Why is she there?
Of evidence. Eventually, beyond exports and fields of opium, I found the most lucrative source of cash. I would intentionally reduce my army down to 0 to try and entice rebels to attack my city. The moment this happens, I hire mercenaries, crush the invaders, and sell off their loot for fat stacks. This sent me from borderline broke to $500,000 in the bag.
There you go.
Hiring mercenaries is incredibly expensive.
Yes.
Paying them is even more expensive, but they handle their own supplies and they're instantaneous.
Yay!
I used them to conquer a neutral region, and as I did, my brain expanded and my neurons started firing, because suddenly I can hire more. For each region under my control, I get access to 5 extra mercenary companies. So I hatched a plan. Take all my money, raise an army of mercenaries, and conquer Winsta, the weakest nation I could find nearby. With each city taken, my numbers increased, eventually laying siege to their capital. I sold everything to keep those mercenaries paid. I almost ran out of money. If that siege lasted a day longer than it did, I would have lost. But in the end, it was worth it. Because I reached the max limit of mercenary companies, and I could now recruit enough men to overpower anyone. Problem is, they're asking for $750K up front.
That's the problem.
With a daily fee of $100K. Soldiers of fortune have a steep asking price.
Yes, they do.
But what if the Golden Horde could pay for itself? I've been on the back foot of negotiations.
The questions that we have to ask ourselves are many and diverse here, Warpugs.
Pleading and groveling to my neighbors for mercy, until now. Selling my spoils, I muster a short-lived but massive army, declare war, intercept their army, and immediately sue for peace, to which they have no option but to accept my favorable terms. The best part about shotgun diplomacy is you already know the answer each time. Because once they surrender, we do it again until we empty their entire treasury. Unknowingly, they just paid for their own demise.
That's dirty. That's dirty, but we've seen it before. We've seen it several times before in history.
The century of humiliation was over as Jackaton turned on their allies. No longer will I be extorted each time it's their nephew's birthday. Tegenval and Sluva were too small to resist. The elvish empire of Starless to the north was a different story, but led to the development of strategies I'd replicate going forward. Economic hyperwar is the act of manipulating the enemy to take decisions that are numerically beneficial while destroying them internally. We invade cities, sell them back to the enemy, only to invade them again. Then we use them as bartering chips for other cities. Take control of those cities, demolish the walls, and advance our front line.
There you go.
Remove the need for extended siege and reduce the enemy to a single fight. There was only one exception to this. As luck would have it, the human empire of Ulisu to the south had the largest standing army in the world. Even if I recruited every mercenary, I would still be outnumbered 2 to 1. So I drained his treasury, and I waited. Eventually, he could no longer afford to maintain his army and fell like...
This is what happened to the Soviets. Make an army too expensive for them to maintain. And if your army is all that's holding your state together, well, bye-bye.
The rest of them. Jackaton lives by a simple proverb. Feed the earth, and it will feed you. But we fed the earth so much that nature herself is vomiting up red. There's too many prisoners of war, and not enough mass graves to go around. The rest is morbid history as I took the rest of the map. Jackaton is now the single state empire of the world. Resources are limitless, currency is infinite. For
Yes.
we possess an infinite money printer. The design of which is as follows. I form a puppet state, declare war on them, take all their money from a peace treaty, invade them anyway, and install a new puppet to repeat the process. I have, in every sense, completely rigged the system. But, like Sisyphus reaching the top of a mountain, I had nothing left to struggle against. And so too did I lose my interest. So, I made a royal decree to arrest everyone. If you're ever interested in ending the game, just click prosecute on your main population. Guards start arresting citizens. Then they arrest other guards before being arrested themselves. Prison wardens get jailed and break out of their own prisons. Chaos and pandemonium rule the day as everyone turns on each other and eventually they turn on me. In summary, Songs of Six has a very expansive, detailed, and enjoyable tutorial. At 160 hours of playtime, I can't wait to play the actual game. This may not take the spot for Game of the Year. As we all know, that's reserved for Churn Vector, but it's a very close second. The graphics, the changing of seasons, the music, the scale of the simulation. Considering this is written in Java, I have no words. There's no other game where the line between city builder and sociopathy is so blurred. To demonstrate this, for my second playthrough as the Garfimi, I proposed a novel form of meat production. It's less of a ranch or a pasture, and more of a tilapia nursery. For reference, at a consumption rate of half an apple a day, a fully grown tilapia child costs us 32 apples, but gives us twice that amount in meat and leather. And once they're adults, we arrest, execute, and butcher them. The tilapia child to tilapia soup pipeline is highly effective. And while my humans don't agree with cannibalism because they're bigoted chuds that can't grasp the richness of Garfimi culture, their stomachs can't complain. So, what have we learned today? 1. Prisoners are the ultimate cash crop. Labor is a resource, and so are they. 2. Look past people and their differences, and see them instead as a source of protein. 3. Much like real life, retirement is economically unfeasible and exists only as a carrot and stick to motivate the working class. I give this game my highest recommendation. I give it no days of food out of we're about to starve. And because it's mainly one guy and not a corporate entity, I can just add.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm releasing the Villain Songs of Six. Then enough time for you to set a sale starting from that date. Oh, very nice.
Just for a sale. If you're interested, it's 20% off on GOG and Steam for the rest of April. The first 100 to use the link win a free chemical castration or prefrontal lobotomy. Terms and conditions may apply. As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. A warm thanks to the many members of the Merchants Guild generously funding and bankrolling these videos. You're all truly wonderful.
Oh
Have
my
a good
god.
One.
Okay, so I'm a fan of city builders. I'm a massive fan of city builders. This might be a game I actually want to give a shot. This might be something I want to give a shot just because the elements of it, you manage economy management, civilization management, all the other kind of stuff. This looks like the kind of game that would be very, very interesting to play from multiple standpoints as far as I'm concerned, as far as, you know, any kind of gameplay aesthetic goes. The dogs are going crazy. Guys, the complexity of this is, it actually very much interests me. Civilization builders have long been a favorite of mine. They have long been a favorite of mine. But civilization builders where you can control this many aspects, where you can control economy, trade, all those things, they hold a special place in my heart because I don't know, Warpost. There's just something about being able to control this much and be able to optimize a civilization as best as I can to fulfill a certain role. I don't know if you guys have ever there was this game back in the day. I cannot remember the name of it, and I wish I could because it was one of the best games I ever saw. But you built an army, and the army was just it was a continuous thing. It was a Super Nintendo game. And I love the concept of it because You continuously built this army and brought it on. If you lost units, those units were gone. You could not replenish them. And there was only certain ways to actually gain new units. And I've never found anything like that again, but the reason I liked it was because it was so complex and so detailed. And this reminds me of that. Warpugs, let me know what you think in the description, in the comments down below. All of Seth's links are going to be in the description, as well as my own. Join as a member of Patreon for early access. Definitely hit the like button, guys. It really does help with the algorithm. And I will see you guys next time. This really, I might have to get this one. I might have to, yeah. Warpugs, later.